Kevin, ultimately it's disappointment here this afternoon at the Sears Stadium, a 2-1 defeat by Kidderminster Harriers in a game which had a lot of incident and a lot of passion about it, but ultimately didn't contain the outcome that you were looking for.
Yeah, I'd be disappointed obviously with the outcome, and I apologise for that. Got ourselves in a good place. They were aggressive. Kidderminster, obviously, full-time team. When we broke the press really well, and we knew we had to stay disciplined and organised against the ball in certain moments. The goal that they've scored to equalise, fantastic strike, albeit probably a little bit, moment too easy for us, but you can take nothing away from that. It's a great strike, top corner. Not a lot we can do about that moment. Jordan's had a short-changed the back pass. He'd be disappointed about it, but great player for us, great kid to have in the changing room. Been really, really consistent, and like I say, just nice to get back in at half-time with the lads, and all of us tried to dig deep to make his situation feel a little bit better and get ourselves back into the game. Unfortunately, that was made all the more difficult with some of the decisions that have been made today. And again, I don't want to try and labour that point, but there's been too many poor decisions out there today that have had too much of a bearing on the outcome of the game, and the sending off I'd be really disappointed with. I don't see that as a clear and obvious goal scoring moment. I think we've got a covering defender that's right there, still a long way from goal, not even central to the goal. So look, I'm going to moan and groan about that, being on the end of a 2-1 defeat. But credit to the boys, even after that, they've kept going and tried to force issues and moments, and worked tirelessly to try and overcome obviously a full-time side. It hasn't quite happened for us.
Sure. Is that the biggest plus out of today? I mean, it's very difficult given the situation where I think we say that as much as it's not mathematically impossible, that the playoff dream is very, very faint now. Is that the biggest plus you can take from it, the way that the team played when they were a player short after Jamie's dismissal? And Kidderminster I didn't feel that, as much as there was only one goal in the game, so it wasn't in Kidderminster's interest to sit back necessarily and try and manage it at that point. But they've offered not very much, and I felt that was down to the efforts of your team then.
Yeah, look, obviously we make a change there and go 3 at the back and take a little bit of a chance, which you have to in those moments. We need to win the game. Players are tiring at a certain stage. You try to keep it fresh and give people chance and opportunity, and it hasn't quite happened for us. But we, lots of those decisions we weren't helped by. At the point that the sending off happens, we're going to get ahead of steam up, and we're going to ask questions of Kidderminster. And as I said to you in a couple of interviews previously, the disappointment of going to Kidderminster over Christmas with so many players out of the group that weren't available. Looking forward to today with most everybody available to us, and just felt, if we'd have kept 11 players on the field, that we'd have taken something from the game. Unfortunately, we didn't. They've got the bragging rights now, and good luck to them. They're a solid side and a good side, and obviously you'd expect that being full time. We wish them well. I'm a little bit sore, but I'll deal with that.
Sure. Again, you say there, given that Kidderminster are a full-time side, they will be will drilled, they'll be organised, trying to play the way that you would want to play against them with 11 players on the field is just made so much harder by the fact that you've only got you're a man short, because I guess you can't press as effectively, can you, that kind of thing?
Well, you're asking obviously 10 players to cover the ground and spaces that normally you get 11 to do, and it's it can galvanise some teams on a good surface. If you've got good players in your group, you can generally manage the situation. It's not to say that always happens. We've come unstuck here when we've played against 10 men earlier in the season and ended up losing the game. So look, there were moments and half-chance moments there. There's potential penalty decision there that the referee decided wasn't. We kept pushing, kept trying to do the right things and tried to find moments, and it hasn't quite happened for us.
Dare I ask, what was the feeling in the dressing room afterwards?
Yeah, clearly one of disappointment. I think most everybody in there, and such is the level of belief in that group, that we felt we could take something from today's game. We had pretty much all our best players available to us. Look, it hasn't happened. We know it's going to be tough. Playing these full-time teams is really tough every time. But we look forward to games like that and want to pit our wits against the best that there are and full-time teams and see how we can come out of it. Wasn't to be. We haven't disgraced ourselves by any stretch. We have to dust ourselves down after this and prepare for Saturday and try to take as many points as we can between now and the end of the season.
Sure, and that's what I was going to come to next. It's Peterborough Sports away. One more home game here against Darlington before the final day against Southport. You've just got to go into those games, push for as much as you can get out of them, and if a miracle happens, you'll take it. But I know your own pride and the pride in the group as well, that they want to finish the season as strong as possible.
Yeah, we do. Is it potentially look at do some of the lads off the bench deserve an opportunity now? Or do we start to change things around? Look, all that becomes under consideration, understanding exactly where some of those lads are that have been on the bench within their game. Might give us an opportunity to go and do that. But I always want to win every game that I take part in and do our best to try and take part. And when you get into the position that we did probably a month or so ago, and there's so much there to fight for and play for, and we've been a little bit outside of today. We've been a little bit disappointed in sort of 2 or 3 of the games. Showed a little bit of naivety in them, lack of concentration and a bit of a lack of understanding, certainly on against Chester, and certain other games here where players need to learn from that and understand and stay up to those levels of high concentration to be coming through games and not allowing points to slip through our fingers. And we've only got ourselves to blame. We've got ourselves into a terrific position and haven't really been able to nail that down. Equally, we've been a little bit challenged with some of the bits and pieces, players that we might have lost, not having Ricky, not having Charlie today, certain players that we've not had Steno for a good chunk of it, and he's obviously playing in a bit of pain at the moment, in an effort to try and get us one of those positions. That hasn't unfolded particularly kindly to us, but you're as good as the squad that you've got, and players have to go in and step up to the plate and carry that baton forward. And we've come up a little bit short in certain games. Our finishing has been poor of late, and consequently, we haven't won the games that we should.
Kevin, thank you as always for your time. Commiserations.
Thank you.
Today.